Academy. In this tutorial module, we'll be looking at how to plot line graph using Microsoft Excel. Now we have a graph of y as a function of x. So if we look at this equation, we have y equals 2s squared for values of x ranges from 0 to 10. So the first thing to do before we start plotting our graph is actually to generate the values of our y. So what we'll do first is to have a table of data that shows the values of x and of course the values of y. So looking at that, we know we have the values of x starting from 0. We have our value of x starting from 0. Then we have the 1, 2, then up to 10. I can just basically just use this to fill in the series. So I can just come here and do fill series. So this actually I've been taking care of in previous classes actually. So the next thing to do is to input this particular equation, to give us the corresponding value of y. So what I do first is, as always, is to put my equals to sign. Then I put the equation, which is 2 multiplied by x. So this is the very first value of x. So I click on A2, then raised to power 2. So I have my first value of y, which obviously is going to be 0 anyway. So what I can then do is to move my cursor close to this very square box, and it changes to this cross, this black cross. Then I can just drag down, then automatically Excel calculates this for me. So after generating the value of x and y, the next thing to do is actually to go to, I'm going to highlight all the values of x and y. So I'm going to highlight it. Then after selecting it, then I can then go to insert. So you come over to this insert menu. So I click on the insert menu, then come over to this scatter graph pattern. So the very first scatter graph that you can see here is actually a scatter plot. What I mean by scatter plot is actually use markers, to actually draw the plot. But this time around we want to use a smooth line, a smooth line. So I can just choose this. So this is actually what we want to use, which is a line graph, a smooth one. So I click on this, then it automatically plots the graph for me. You can see, so it plot the graph for me. So I can let me delete this, because I don't need this again. I can delete this. Then I can move this over. I can also stretch this. I can stretch this from the bottom side. I can also stretch this from the left side, and likewise I can stretch at the topmost side. So if you're looking at this graph, one thing you will notice is the moment Excel plots the graph, there is an automatic chart tools menu that gets added to the menu bar. We have a completely new chart tools that comes up. Immediately you select the graph area, the plot area. So just watch, if I click outside of the graph area, it disappears. You can't see it. So the moment I click back into the chart area, the chart tools appears. So this chart tools menu have two menu items, which are chart design and format. So basically what I want to do here is to add a little bit of formatting, to actually gives my plot some kind of good look and precision, kind of, just to add a lot of flavor, if I may use that language, flavor to it, to make it more appealing, and more descriptive, for everyone to be able to follow up. Okay, so the first thing to do is I want to work on the axis. I want to work on the axis. This axis is the y axis. Then we have the x-axis here. So I can just let me just zoom out. Let me zoom out a bit, just gonna zoom out so that because I want to work on something. Okay, good. Now we have our y axis, then we have our x axis. So what I then do is once I click on the chart area, then I can obviously, the first step, I go to the chart design. Once I click the chart design, it also have different toolbar sections, which are chart layout. We have the chart styles, we have the data, we have the type and location. So basically for these formatting I want to do, I'll just basically work with adding some chart elements. So I'm going to go here to add chart element. So once I click this chart element, I want to work with the axis. Already we have our primary horizontal on, it's on already. I can bring back the horizontal axis back. So what I want to add actually is my axis title. I want to add an axis title to the primary horizontal. So primary horizontal means the horizontal axis. So once I click this, I can then input my axis title for this horizontal axis, which is X. Okay, I can as well bolden it. I can bolden it. I can make it bold. Also have a little bit of boldness to it. I can also increase the font by coming back to home. I can increase the font. Make it look big. And appealing. Then I add a little bit of bold to it. Then I can go back to my chart design, add chart element, add chart element, then axis title. Then I can click on primary vertical. So that means, I want to come to label the y axis as y. So I'm going to put y here. So I'm also going to go back to my home button, to increase the font. So I'm going to increase the font. Let me see. Okay, let me increase that to, let me add 14 to it. Then I can bolden it up. Okay, that about that. Then as soon as I've done that, I can also go back to the chart design, also add chart element. All these things I'm adding are still within the confines of chart element. So I click on the drop down arrow. Then I want to add my chart title. So definitely I want my chart title to be above, which is somewhere around there. I could also make it center overlay, but I want to put it above the chart. So I have my chart title here. I can simply just say a graph. I can say a graph. I can say let me say a plot. I like using plot. A plot of y, I say equals to x raised to power 2. So I can have this as my chart title. Then obviously I can bolden it and also increase the font as you like. And I can go back to my chart element once again. Then obviously we have other things like data labels. If you want to add labels to add labels to the curve, that is, you want the data to be displayed along the curve, for clarity's sake, you might want to have it at different sites, different locations along the line. You can have it like that, but I'm not interested in that. I think that is just fine for now. Then we could add grid lines. If you look at this chart, you will notice we have grid lines already, but these grid lines are actually the major grid lines. There are two major types of grid lines in any chart, any line chart. You have the primary major vertical grid lines, then you have the primary horizontal major horizontal grid lines. So we have primary major, then we have primary major vertical. So we want to add the minor horizontal to it. So I'm going to just select the minor horizontal. So it put it there. Then I can also select the minor vertical, so you have it more like kind of graph you have in college, so I can expand. So I want to expand, to make it look more bold, more visible. So you can see the lines, showing. Okay, so you can see the line showing like this. So already I've added it to it, but of course, obviously I can add other elements, that is if I want to, but for now I think this is about okay. So next thing I want to do is I want to go to the format item here. Now I've added at least the major element I want to add in this line chart. So I can click on the format menu item. So if I click on the format menu item, now I want to start formatting all the different chart elements I've added. Okay, good. So once I click on the format menu item under this chart tools menu, then I can come down to this current selections. Then I click on this drop down arrow, so I can see the different chart elements that I could actually format. So let's start with the chart area. The chart area, then once I select the chart area, I click on format selection. So I could click on format selection. So it opens up a pane. You could see format chart area by the right. So when we are saying chart area, what we mean is the area, the square area on which this chart is plotted. So you could add colors to it. For example, I could add to say I want to add color to the chart area. I can add different color, but basically I don't want any color, so I can just say no fill. Then of course usually the border comes with line. I can say no line. I could have solid lines to it if I want to, but usually I don't like lines as a border, so I choose no line. And there are several things you could also add to it. You could have shadow settings, transparency, glow, soft edges, and some other things. I think that's about that I want to add for the chart area. So I can also go back for chart title. The chart title, I could say okay, format selection. So it opens up format chart title pane, on the right side. So I could as well add color to it. For example, I could add a solid line to this, so that I could have a kind of a background color to the chart title. I could add that to the chart title. Then border, for example, if we check this chart title, I could say border line. If I select it, I could say I don't want any line to be at the border. I want it to be borderless. So I've done that. Then I can always come back again to the format. I can select my horizontal value as is. So this horizontal value as is, for example. So if we check the horizontal as is, the value ranges from 0 to 12 with an increment of 2. That is 1 centimeter to 2 units. So I could decide to change the axis. I could decide to change the axis. One thing first is I want to format this axis, this horizontal axis. Now if you look at this heading here, you have format axis. So I could decide to fill the line. I could decide to fill it with solid colors if I want, but usually I could just leave it as a no fill. I could leave it. Then the line, I want to thicken the line, that's horizontal line. So I select solid line. I can select black. I usually like black. Then obviously I can select the width. I can increase the width. You can see the width is increasing. I can put it at 1.75. So once I've done that, other ones too, I could change other line type if I choose to. Then I can come down to the effects, if I want to change effect. But this is going to come in the next video. So I could also go down to the size and properties. And look at where they have been placed. I could choose top, vertical alignment, usually I could just leave it at middle center. Text direction is horizontal. You could rotate it, just like that. You see it's rotating. I could rotate to 70 degrees. It rotates. Or I can just put it, I could just do it by stacked, by stacked. Then obviously I will return it back to horizontal. I'm more interested in horizontal. Okay, good. Then we come down to the axis options. Under these axis options, I can decide to say I want these to end at, let's say, 14. I can increase it to end at 14. I can decrease to end by 14. You can see 14 has been added to it. So instead of my major unit to be 2, I could decide to have, let's say, I could decide to have it like 1. I choose 1. Watch what will happen. So it takes it 0, 1, 2, 3 all through to 14. But I think I prefer 2, so I can just return it back to 2. Good. Then if I want 10 mini lines to be here, that is, instead of having each lines of the horizontal axis to be 0.4, I could decide to have, okay, this is actually 10 anyway. It's actually 10, so I could start to have, if I have 0.5, what happens? It changes also, it aligns properly, so I could leave it about this. So I've changed the axis of the horizontal axis. So I can also bold it by just selecting. I can put bold to it. So the same way also I can come down to this also, and select the horizontal value as its major grid lines. So these are the major grid lines of the horizontal values. So what I then do is I can click on format selection. So once I click on format selection, for this line I can select solid. After selecting solid, I can increase the width here. I can increase the width maybe to 1.75. Then I can close this. I can go back to the format selection also. I can click on the horizontal axis minor grid line. So let me click on that. So these are minor grid lines. And minor grid lines needs to be faint. The thickness of the line needs to be somehow thin. So I can just leave it at 1.25 is fair enough. No, let me see. Let me put it back to something much more. Okay, I think this is good. Then I can also decide to to come down to horizontal value as its title. I think we've done that. Then we just move over to plot area. Plot area is actually the selected area. I can click on format selection also. I could decide to say, okay, no lines. I don't want lines to be there. I don't want it to have border, so I can select no lines. So I can leave that. Then of course I can go back to it also and select the vertical value axis, that is the y-axis. So I want to format the y-axis, so I click on format selection. So I come over here, I could select the color, for example. So maybe I don't want any fill. Then I want the line to be solid, of course, and I'm going to change the width to 1.75. Let me see, 1.75. Good, that's good. Then I move to this vertical alignment is there. Then I move to the axis option. So now the minimum on the y-axis is 0. The maximum is 250. I could decide to leave the maximum to be, let's say, 230. That's if I want. So you will notice that it changes to 230 here. I could also design to have the major grid lines 50. 50 is fair enough. Then I could decide to have it, instead of having it 10 unit, I could have 5, split it into 5, so that you have 10 lines, per 1 centimeter. So I could have that in that way. So if we look at this, Then I can also go back to the format selection, and work on the vertical axis major grid lines. Major grid lines. Then I click on format selection. I want to make the line thick. Solid lines. Then I increase to 1.75. I want to make it thick. Okay, so once I'm done, and I come back here again and I select the vertical axis minor grid lines. Then I click on format selection. So I want the line to somehow be 0.5, back to 0.5. So that is about that. Now I have pretty well my graph getting good, and I could also change the color of this. I could just select this axis. For example, I could go back to my format. I want to change the color of the x-axis, so I go back here and I'm putting horizontal. I'll select horizontal axis and click on the format selections. Then I want something to do about the fill, which is the fill, so I can select the fill because I want it to be more visible. Or let me put something. I can just choose this. Okay, so I'm choosing, or let me choose something more better. Okay, let me choose this. Then that is just more like a background color. Then I could select the font, the lines. I could select the lines. Then I could go back to home. Let me go back to home, and select a font, a good font for it. Now I've selected the font, so I could change the line back to black color. So I have my font, the font of the values in red. I could also just quickly click on this. I could click on the y-axis. Immediately this changes to the settings for the y-axis. So I could come down to these solid lines. So I could also go back to these and select choose the red color. As you can see, it changes to red, so that it becomes more visible. So I could also just click on the line. I could click on the line, and come down to my format and choose this shape outline. Then maybe I want it to be in red. I could want it to be in red. I could want to be much darker red. So this is how you change, add different elements to a line chart, how you plot a line chart, and also how you change quite a number of things concerning a line chart in Excel. Thank you. Bye for now.